Hi, guys. Welcome back. I'm Daniella Rabbani, your host of the Mom Curious podcast. I'm actually here with Dr. Tracy Dalgleish, who was on, I think it was probably season 2
I think so.
for your first book.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't sign up for this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I signed up for this, but that's the name of the book. That was all to do with the equitable living between partners.
The resentment that would show up with couples after, almost every couple showed up into my therapy room saying the same thing that I found myself saying one day in the shower.
And we had a really beautiful conversation. I still think about that and how I opened up to you about how basically my parents' marriage was such a huge part of what shaped me as a young person, as a person.
Yeah.
And how sacred I really feel your work is. But you're here for your second book in, is it 2 years?
Yes.
That's very impressive.
Thank you.
It's called You, Your Husband, and His Mother, which, by the way, when I heard the name of your book, I literally almost spit out my copy. I was like, this is hilarious. And also, I can't believe I was reading it, and I'm like, I can't believe a whole book can be dedicated to this one topic. I just want everyone to know, in case you haven't already followed Dr. Tracy on Instagram, which, by the way, you should, and you get to hang out with her husband on there too, which I think is sweet that he's such a good sport.
Oh, he's just amazing.
Oh.
Off camera, you don't see me directing him. And then when he's in the role, he does so well. But then he's critical of himself, like we all are too when we're showing up on it. So,
but he's like game, and I love that for him.
Yeah.
Okay, so Dr. Tracy Dalgleish is a clinical psychologist, couples therapist, and sought-after relationship expert. She is the creator of Be Connected Digital, which, by the way, you can join all over the world, where she teaches people all over the world how to have healthy relationships so that you can say, oh, yeah, he's amazing about your husband one day. Her work has been featured in outlets like the New York Times, Forbes, and Time, and her research has appeared in peer-reviewed academic journals. She is the author of the book I Didn't Sign Up for This and the host of the Top 100 Parenting podcast, Dear Dr. Tracy. I would love to be on that show. Such a good show.
Yeah, why haven't you been on it
I don't
yet?
know, but it's going to happen.
Okay,
it's going to be great, guys. Don't even worry. I put a plug in right at the top of the episode. Okay, the owner of the mental health clinic Integrated Wellness. Like the credits keep going. She lives in Ottawa, which I also find fascinating, with her husband and 2 children.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being
here.
Thank you. Season 5 is dedicated to my amazing sister, Ariana Rabbani Rappaporte. So I just wanted to open up with that. A truly beautiful, beautiful person who would really enjoy this conversation, who perhaps is really enjoying this conversation. Yeah. And I just ask that, some people ask for rates and reviews on their podcast. What I ask of you, dear listener, is to do an act of kindness in Ariana's memory. And that could be, let's say, calling your mom or maybe working on yourself and having a better relationship with your husband and your mother-in-law, let's just say. But one act of kindness would be amazing in her honor. Thank you so much. So that's a huge intro. Let's get into me and you, Dr. Tracy. We're like in the flesh. I'm so honored that you're here.
Oh,
You've grown so much in the last 2 years.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. Just when I think of all of who I get to connect with, you are on that list. And to actually come into New York City today and get to sit with you. We made this happen.
I know.
And that's just, I'm just so grateful.
A lot of people will poo-poo social media. But like our mutual friend, Neha Rush always says, without social media, I wouldn't know you.
That's what I come back to all the time. When I started my social media account, I didn't tell anybody. I did it one morning after nursing my second baby back to bed. I was still awake, doing some writing, and I thought, today's the day I'm going to do this. Started my account, and I didn't tell any of the therapists that were in my community because I felt embarrassed. And if you had told me in 2018 that I would have all of these connections today, I would not believe it.
Well, from Ottawa, you woke up at 3:00 in the morning. you got on a plane
Yes.
and you have 2 full days in New York City with like friends. I mean, we've never
Yeah.
met in person,
I
but
know.
I feel so connected to you.
Same.
I have a huge curiosity, which is, and I know that you thank your parents in the book, but what brought you to this work of being a relationship expert? Why is this work, in my opinion, it's such wholly important work. There's no more important choice in your life than who you're going to spend it with, who you're going to procreate with. I mean,
Yes.
and how you're going to spend that time with that person. How did you come to know that you wanted to mentor people in doing it better?
I think back to learning about attachment styles.
Oh.
That was my entry point. And then starting to research attachment styles and romantic relationships. And those were the early sparks for me that led me to that. But if I go back even further, I remember my sister and I are 5 years in age difference, and she would come to me and flop on my bed and say, "Are we dating? Are we not?" And I would think, "Well, just ask. Why aren't you communicating about these things?" And it was always this curiosity about what makes us tick. How is it that one comment can upset the whole apple cart? How is it that we feel so disconnected and far apart from each other when really it's just that we need closeness and connection to know that we matter? And so I think it was just this evolution of curiosity about our most important bond. And I know as a mother, I know my bond with my children is so important, of course. And I also know my job is to launch my kids. And then who's left beside me? That's my husband. I have to still like him when we get to that moment.
So many people are actually doing this later in life divorce. My parents did actually. And I think that sort of question of, well, will I still like him after my kids are, isn't
Right.
that a Beatles song? Will you still love me? Will you still hug me
Oh,
when I'm,
I don't know that one.
listen, I'm a singer and that was not it. But you asked the question that a lot of people don't have the foresight to ask, which is, okay, we can't just plow through this parenting experience, which is tough.
Yeah.
We have to leave this thing intact, like
Yeah.
in ourselves and relationally.
Yeah, and it's so hard because we are pulled constantly by distractions, and especially today with our phones and our devices. And Greg and I recently talked about autopilot and how that shows up in relationships, and this idea of you walk into a room and you automatically pull your phone out of your pocket, and then before you know it, you're standing there for 10 minutes scrolling, and how human we are because we do those things to cope. And at the same time, what's really important to us? And with parents, I continue to hear from people, we don't have time, we're too busy. And I get that. You don't have time to take the 4-day weekend away. You don't have time to go on that date night to that restaurant where you won't get home at 2 a.m. And what does time together look like now? What does that intentionality look like?
How on earth you, your husband, and his mother plays a part in that intentionality?
Oh my goodness. I continue to have couple after couple show up into my therapy room, and everybody says, I want to improve our communication and connection. And then everybody says, and we want to have healthy family relationships. That's what we dream of. We don't find a partner and think one day we're going to have problems with your family.
Except so many people do.
Because we don't prepare for it. Right? Yes, and you're absolutely right. So many people do. And I think there's a lot of shame that comes with that conflict. A lot of people are very quiet about it. So if you ask the question, do you have a good relationship with your mother-in-law or with your in-laws? A lot of people will say, yes, I do. But when I ask a different question, which is, have you and your partner ever gotten into conflict because of your in-laws? That number goes through the roof.
They're not even honest with you as the therapist?
For me as a therapist, they'll be in my therapy room being honest.
Okay.
But when you're talking to people at an event, you're at the dinner party, you're on the street with coworkers, they're likely not sharing that, yes, we've had that conflict. And I think that's because a lot of people feel shame about it.
Why?
This idea that we should always be this happy family. And actually, when I think of even just saying that, I immediately think of Succession. But those family dynamics were great.
Because they're
Complex.
honest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why we like look to media. That's
Mhm.
probably why we're scrolling also. We're just like, wait, where can I be reflected? Which is so much of the mother experience. We're like, oh, I want a mirror, right? I want someone to tell me like, you feel really overwhelmed. I see, I see that. Sometimes we look to media to be like, oh, I see what's happening behind closed doors.
Right.
Let me show you.
Right. Yes,
That's why we enjoy all those dysfunctional family films.
it is the mirror. We want it to be reflected back to us. And because then that normalizes it. We don't feel so alone in that pain and struggle.
Yeah, but in real life, we're often dealing with everything's fine. Everything's fine.
Yes. Yeah. And that also too was the background for my first book.
Yeah.
Which is, how do we name something so we can actually change it? So we don't have to keep the curtains closed and hide behind what the real struggle is. And again, that was my experience in early parenthood. I would be at the park, and you remember me telling you this. I'd be at the park wanting to connect with people, and they would be talking about solid transitions and nap schedules and sleep time and what toy was keeping their kids entertained. And I was seething inside thinking, does anybody else hate their husband as much as I do?
Yeah.
Nobody was talking about that. And that's where this book also comes from, is this piece around how do we have these conversations so we have better relationships? That's what we want.
I love the book for so many reasons. I've like dog-eared so many different. Oh, this one is regulating the nervous system, and you give us like bullet points about how to regulate your own nervous system. I love that you mention that. Yeah, it's your mother-in-law's issues, but it's your issues too. You're not a victim in this, and you
Right.
have agency. And I'm not saying it's not hard, but
I think the conversation around mother-in-law, daughter-in-law is a lot of blame. We want to find who the problem is. And we can sit here and say there are things that people do that are not okay. And we also have to look at the complexity of these relationships, meaning it's not just about the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. It's also the mother-son dynamic that we have to look at.
Yes. Can we look at that can I like zoom in on that real quick? Yeah. What is that special connection, which is slightly different than the mother-daughter connection for the most part?
I think of it as girls are almost raised. Well, first, biologically, developmentally, girls develop faster emotionally and socially. So by 18 months, 2 years, you see a difference. They can start expressing emotions, naming emotions. You even see the social dynamics earlier with girls and compared to boys. I mean, my oldest is a boy, my youngest is a girl. So they're 10 and 8 now. And the girl stuff that just came out so early was fascinating to see compared to boys. And that confirms what we see in research when I think of my personal experience. But so girls are often taught it's okay to be the angry teenager. Yes, you can express that. You can slam your door. And, I think of mothers who then say to their daughters, just you wait until you have a daughter and she'll be slamming the door back, right? It's almost this socially acceptable, culturally acceptable thing that we have. Whereas for many men, they grew up as boys being told to get back out on the team. You fell down, get back up, brush it off. Don't talk about your emotions and needs. And so there's this sense of we don't name what it is that you're experiencing.
Sort of skipping that part.
And then what happens then between mother and son is that sometimes, not always, but sometimes mom is so busy mothering son that she doesn't let him grow into his own autonomy.
That's like the first thing you said, is that I love my children, but I also will have to let them go.
Yes,
At some
both of
point.
them.
Both of them.
And with my son as well, he's got this really cute statement where he'll say, "Mom knows where it is in the house." So he'll be like,
He and every other little boy.
I know. Yeah. And my husband and my daughter. And so then he'll say, "Hey, Mom, where's the thing?" And I will say back, "Tell me where you've looked first."
Right.
So then it's not all on me. I'm building his agency to find something, which sounds so silly. But then when I think about with my husband, the joke between us is, did you bend your knees?
I love that. I'm going to use that.
And we do it jokingly. It's lovingly between us. Or if he's open the fridge and he's like, where's the ketchup? It's like, did you move anything?
Right. Yeah.
So it's just that sense of how are we raising our boys? And of course, recognizing too that as a mother, I am his first model of what it means to be in a loving relationship with a woman. You don't break that bond. And I talk about that in chapter 1, that I will be, as a mother, the one who's at his first soccer goal game. I will be the one who sees him off to college. And when another person comes in and he's developing a romantic bond with them, I have to let them go and do that together.
So many people have a hard time with that. So many people that you talk about culture. I mean, and I'm in the United States, you're in Canada. We totally agree on that cultural phenomenon. But you were in Marrakesh, and there were jokes being made about your mother-in-law. Well, how many years ago? 20 years ago? You talk about that in the beginning of your book.
It's the first line in 2011. I was in Istanbul. Yes.
Oh,
and
different place. Just for the record,
I was in the spice.
It was a long book. No, not that long.
I was in the spice market, and I remember the seller yelling out, "Would you like some spices? And a beautiful scarf for your mother-in-law, or perhaps some poison." And I remember at that trip, I had already been working with couples for so many years. I wrote that line down in a journal, and I knew that this was a book that needed to be written.
Wow.
And that for me is just this, and again, Daniella, the repeated experience where couples would come in and they didn't have a system. They didn't have a book just for this specific dynamic, because when we think about, and a lot of people have asked me, why didn't you call it you, your husband, and her mother, or my mother? And yes, of course, but we know that women are more practiced setting boundaries with their own mother, but then they go to their mother-in-law and you start with a power differential. You want this woman to like you. So maybe you have more flexible, porous boundaries at the beginning. You slide into that good girl daughter-in-law role.
Yeah, I tried that. It doesn't work.
It's not sustainable. It works for a period of time, maybe.
Yeah.
But it's not sustainable.
It's not honest.
No. And you lose yourself.
Yeah.
And then what happens is something changes in the dynamic, like you get married, you buy your own place, you have a child, you have 2 kids, and then you change. Rightfully so, because now you're no longer going to be the pleaser and the caregiver for everybody else.
You can't.
You can't.
And you shouldn't.
And then what happens, though, for your mother-in-law? Then she's confused. Well, where did Daniella go? She used to be here all the time, and now she won't even let me come over unannounced? Just making up that example.
Well, you mentioned that, like, in some cultures, and I love that you prompt the reader to take a look at, like, well, what's this family dynamic based on their culture, their values, their, the order of, the children in the house. Like, really consider what you've already stepped into. Like, you are in the middle of a movie in their family.
Yeah.
That movie started, back then, and you're stepping into it. So there's a culture at play, but culture in general has shifted where we're not going to be living in our husband's family home and then taking orders from his mother, although there's this, like, residual idea that we might take some orders still.
That we should still, it's just mom. I hear that conflict between, and this is where that other dynamic is where what's the couple dynamic and what's the couple relationship with in-laws. And this is why it's so complex, because if couples are on the same team and they see the pattern and they see mom for what she does and they're aligned with how they set boundaries and how they approach holidays, and perhaps also mom is someone who can say, of course, I want you to prioritize what you need and I'll be over here for a different day and we can do it then. But for many couples, that's not the case. And I hear men saying, it's not that big of a deal. You're being too sensitive. That's just mom. That's how mom is.
They say that in your therapy room, so they must actually really believe it. Because, like, when you're with the therapist, first of all, you're paying, like, a lot of money. It's like an hour of your time, like, and you have a lot going on. They must really think that this is, like, worthy feedback.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's not.
but
Just for
that's
the record.
that's the system at play that we're trying to break out of. And that's what causes so much tension and friction between partners first on that first level. And then the other conflict that comes in then is, well, how are we setting these boundaries with your mom, with family members? And if he's stuck in this loyalty system, meaning he still wants to please mom, he doesn't want to upset her. He knows that if he says no to her, that she'll do this passive aggressive silent treatment.
This sounds so like spineless and like, I don't know, like little boyish. It's so unattractive.
Yeah. And if he never got to grow up though, and growing up means, hey, mom, coming home right now doesn't work for me.
Mm.
I'll come home another time.
It's tough because, you know, our parents are older and they're not going to live forever, you know? Obviously, mortality is on my mind these days, but,
Of course.
you know, there is good reason to see your parents. And sometimes, you know, there was a moment in time in my own marriage where I was like, go to Thanksgiving. And I don't want to. And I didn't. My friend Alana was like, wait, you could do that? And I'm like, they won't miss me anyway.
Yeah.
In this moment in time, I have to tell you, and part of the reason why I was excited to sit down was because, you know, I think everyone has different degrees of relationships with their in-laws. Some are really fantastic. My husband loves my mother. Like, they're friends.
Yeah.
And I feel so lucky because they actually are just friends. But when I heard the news of my sister dying, I was like, really, it was one of the scariest. It was the scariest moment of my life, and the first person to hug me was my mother-in-law.
Yeah.
I could have never scripted that.
She met you in that vulnerability, and then in that need, she saw you.
And this is the same in-law that I 3 years ago said, I don't want to go to Thanksgiving. I don't think that's disconnected, if I'm being honest. It's okay to set boundaries. It's good.
Yeah.
I've done the same with my own parents.
Yes.
I was.
That's the important thing though, right there, is that it's not, and this is where a lot of people struggle in this conversation. It's not that you are out to get your in-laws and you treat your own family differently. It's you've already been doing this with your family.
Hopefully, you call it individuation. Maybe you can like walk us through what individuation might look like as an adult, you know, if you haven't already individuated.
Yeah, individuation is this process of recognizing that you have your own thoughts, feelings, needs, opinions, desires, wishes, and values. You are truly a separate person. And part of growing up is this continuous process of separating from your family. You do it at 4 weeks old when your eyes adjust and realize mom is separate from you. You do it at 8 months old when you push mom away because now you want to go on the floor and play with the blocks. At 2 years old, when mom says you don't get the cookie and you scream, no, I want the cookie. At 10, my little guy, he's not little anymore, but he's, you know, he comes to me saying, I know we're supposed to watch a movie tonight. I'd love to go and hang out with my friends at the park. Can we do this another time? And I say, yes, I totally get it because your friends are so important to you. Thank you for coming to me and sharing your need with me. And let's make sure we get that time, just the two of us. That's individuation. I can come to you, recognize that I have needs and feelings that are completely different than yours. I am not responsible for yours, and you are not responsible for mine. And we're allowed to have our own reactions. And then how do we come together and co-create? That's the interconnectedness that we struggle to do because of those old legacy patterns, which are things like rigidity. You have to show up on this day for this holiday. Thanksgiving is on Thursday. You have to show up that. That's what we do every year.
Right.
Rigidity, control, parentification, where adult children are made responsible for parents' emotions and well-being. That's been a long pattern for them probably. Your lovability doesn't rely on his or your in-laws' approval. That's what that is right there. That's what individuation is. I am still a lovable person, even if others are upset with me.
And it sets other people free too.
Of course.
Right? So that meant for me in my life, at my scariest, lowest, most out of control moment, she knew me. She saw me. She hugged me.
Yeah.
Because she was my mommy. She was the physical mommy.
Yeah.
In that moment. And it continues to be a beautiful relationship, the way my husband and my mother connect as well. But I think those individuation moments are healthy for both parties.
You didn't force it. I think you didn't force yourself. I'm thinking of a client I worked with, and it was every Sunday night. She had her baby, I think maybe was 10 months old. Every Sunday night went to her in-laws for dinner. The whole family gathered, and it was intense. People would swear at the table, conversations got heated. It just didn't fit for her. And so we talked about what would it mean to send baby and husband to the family dinner, and then you start taking that as time for you. And she hummed and hawed about it. And then when she made that decision, everything else started to feel easier. She still went for the holiday bigger events, but every Sunday night, she wasn't there anymore. And it wasn't I'm abandoning his family, we're excluding him. It wasn't that.
And actually, she didn't take the kid away.
No.
Yeah, like she wasn't like, this is too heated. There are cultures, and I don't know why I'm like harping on it. Probably because, like, you know, I am a first generation American, so I live within a subculture of the culture. And anyway, and I'm curious about culture. Anyway, I love that you mention it. There are cultures that are loud and abrasive and offensive, and she didn't say my son isn't allowed to be around this.
Right.
It's
and we had to work
for her.
We had to work through that piece. We had to kind of label this safety piece versus what does it mean to be in this culture that your partner is part of, and then allowing your child to experience some of that. But ultimately, and this, Danielle, is where I worry about how we're parenting today.
Ditto.
In the sense that, are we swinging too far? Because then we're saying we don't want our children to have these adverse experiences.
Yeah.
Instead of appreciating that baby, 2-year-old, 5-year-old can go and spend 2 hours with grandparents.
Who are loud.
And
they curse.
And then come back home. And then you're the figure there. You're the safe place. You're the one who's setting them up for all of that. Yeah. And I walk people through that in step 5, which is, you know, how do you take action? What does it actually look like? Because you don't get to control other people. So if you're giving family feedback saying, hey, could we not swear at the table? That's not a boundary, that's a request. Let's make sure we differentiate that. But the piece here is, if you don't get to change them, so how do I have this sense of agency? And parents need to know that you are the one who spends the most time with your children. Your values, your sense of security and connection is what guides
your culture.
Children.
Yeah.
Like your culture in your home.
Your home. Yeah. I think we are a little too precious. Like, I would be the mom who would tell my parents and my in-laws, I'm going to own this. Like, tell the baby you're going to pick them up. I'm going to pick you up now. I said, I'm going to pick you. Yes, he's 3 months old, but he is a sentient being. I was crazy. And I really own that now.
Best.
And I was doing the best with what I had.
Yes.
And like this sort of trauma-informed parenting when we have not traumatized our children. We just gave them formula.
Right.
We haven't traumatized our children. We tried sleep training. Like, we are, you know, and now that I have experienced real trauma and there are children involved, I'm going to tell you, I will be the one to tell you what you're talking about, what the general idea of what trauma is, particularly with children right now in the lap of luxury, is not trauma.
No.
And I'm actually happy that I had that training, if I'm being honest, now.
Yes.
Because when my son asks about death and when he's really overwhelmed by it all, I can meet him because there was a real trauma.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
But that was a real rant. That was a real rant.
I loved it.
Because I agree with you that I think we're just pussyfooting around children who
Yeah.
They're okay.
Well, I know you spoke to one of our other dear friends, Dr. Tanya Collar.
Love.
Absolutely. I mean, I
Wow.
just, every time I sit with her, I just feel, and I know she talks about this as well, which is really the resilience building in children and also the repair between family members. And so that if something happens with your child, if you yell or, you didn't meet the need, you go and repair because you're showing them what it means to be human.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing. And so as to be human, it does mean that sometimes you're in spaces where people are allowed at the table and it doesn't feel good. And maybe they make comments about bodies and politics and all the things. And then you come back into your safe place and you then decide what to do next with that.
Mm.
And when your caregiver is there and present and can say, I get that didn't feel good for you, what would you like to do next time?
It's also possible that it felt just fine.
Also true.
Went over their heads.
Yep. Learn to tune it out. Yep. This is just what we do at Grandma and Grandpa's house. Okay, I'll go play with my trucks.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah. I think a lot of people I look at a book like yours and I'm like, get it. Get it even if you don't have an issue with your mother-in-law, which, by the way, there are people who don't, which is great.
Oh, yes.
But it sounds like this is the second most important topic after resentment of your spouse.
This is one of the top struggles for couples. It's one of the top reasons why couples get divorced.
Oh my God.
Right?
How
And
sad.
it is a breakdown in communication and connection. Being able to see each other, that's what is underneath all of our conflict. Do you see me? Do I matter to you? Am I enough for you? And so if I come to you and say, ouch, your mom made that comment again, and I'm just really struggling in postpartum right now, and partner says, stop being so sensitive. Gosh, it's not that big of a deal. How do you feel in that moment? Not seen. You've just had this paper cut and they're just going to paper cut you again. And that just becomes persistent for couples without having a system. And that's really where the book came from, is how do I give couples this system? Because it's not a just do X, Y, Z. And I'm going to plug the book hard here because social media tells us that we could just do X, Y, Z and it's going to work, and it's not. That's why the book has more lift in it. You're going to do more of this exploration of yourself, of you as a couple, of what really matters to you, of the triangle dynamic that you're getting stuck in, and then how to actually set healthy, loving boundaries.
Can we talk about the system? The vault?
Yes. The vault came from this imagery of a sound structure. Because when a couple is a solid team, when they're united, when they're on the same page, they're so resilient. You think of bedtime and they're crying, the kids want 10 more books, and it takes you 2 hours, and then you both walk out the door and you flop on the couch. And when you're connected, you can look at each other and say, that was a doozy. I'm so glad we're doing it together. But when you're disconnected, when you're not solid as that vault, you can't even see each other. You feel like enemies. It's a you versus me system. And so when I developed the vault, it really was this, how do I create this sound structure? So it's 5 steps. The first step stands, and it's an acronym. So V stands for values. You're going to explore what's really important to you as a couple. And I love the exercise because you can come back to that exercise, or several in there, over and over again, because your values change. What matters when your kids are newborns is going to change when they're 10 and 8. And then the second step is aspirations. So A stands for aspirations. And that's where the nervous system part is. Because if we're on autopilot, we can't address this stuff. So we do have to get connected in our bodies.
It's a great list.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate it.
But Daniella, what I was finding happening is that couples would come in and say, we're on the same page. We both value family. Family is important to us, but then they couldn't get onto the ground. They're 35,000 feet in the air arguing, but they couldn't decide on the ground level. And the one story I tell in the book is the couple where he wanted to go to family Sunday espressos and patisseries or biscottis every Sunday night. And she was fine with it at the start, but then as they had kids and things were changing, she said, could we just go once a month? And he didn't want to do that. But that's the aspirations. What do we actually want this to look like? If a parent gets sick, who's living in our home? What are we doing with that? What do holidays look like? When we have a baby, who's in the delivery room with us, who's coming to visit. So it's opening up these conversations. And truthfully, it's a list that I didn't have.
Most of us don't.
Mhm. And that's why I just absolutely love that step. Step 3 is understanding your triangle. So what is that dynamic? I think, I don't know if I had to choose a favorite step, like I love that one. Step 4 is limits and boundaries. So L stands for limits and boundaries. And I talk about in this chapter, how do you actually get on the same page as a couple?
Mm.
And that's where conflict often shows up. And there's a reason why this is step 4 and not step 1. Because if you go to your partner initially and say, you need to set a boundary with your mother, defenses go up,
Yeah.
armor's on, you're not going to get anywhere. So
Well,
that's
it's
step
like you
4.
need to save money. Well, for what?
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Why?
Like, what
Yeah.
are my values? What are the goals?
Yeah,
Right? We need to,
absolutely.
yeah.
And then the last step is really take action. My 3 A's are in there to help you plan for the next holiday event, to help you decide what you're going to do. Because the other piece in all of this work, and part 1 of the book is you really doing this assessment of what's the family you walked into, what's your own baggage that you carry in, and what's your couple communication style. That one's huge as well. But then that last step is all about deciding what matters most, because you can't then start addressing every critical comment that your in-law makes. You'll get nowhere. You'll exhaust yourself. But instead, you'll learn what type of mother-in-law you have. And then based on that pattern of behavior from her, you're going to have specific things to do to help communicate the bigger picture with her.
Mm. I love that you democratize therapy. Like, there are people who would want this
Yeah.
and can't sit down with you. Don't live in Ottawa, but don't necessarily have the money or
Mhm. Time.
the time.
Yeah. It's time. A lot of people will talk about time. The kids are young. I have moms rocking 3-month-olds in session. Time is really hard.
Yeah. And I feel like what you're doing with this book and with your online community is that you're saying, okay, well, let's make it work
Mhm.
because it's worthwhile for you
Yes.
to live in a harmonious marriage. Because the mother-in-law shouldn't be the reason why people are getting divorced. Like,
No.
if it's not working out, it's not working out. That's one thing. But yeah, you can take that out of the equation
Mhm.
right now
Yeah.
and maybe even come closer together in that process. Is that what you found that people have?
Yeah, it is this it's just this reshifting. It's not that we abandon mom, it's that we prioritize feelings and needs in your own home first. It's that chosen family, not to exclude mom, but to then bring her in ways that works better for everybody. But you do have to get on the same team to do that, because if you can't, you're going to be against each other.
Why does it feel like in some uh, family dynamics and in some of the examples in the book, like the triangulation is like the mother-in-law is like the other woman in a
Mhm.
way.
Mhm.
There, like, in more conservative environments, like a woman would go from her father's home to her husband's home.
Yes.
But in a triangular relationship with the mom and the wife, the husband never leaves his original home. He's just in limbo in both.
That's that loyalty bind.
Oh, it's the loyalty.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what that is.
But it's the and for many men, this is an unconscious experience.
Most,
Mhm.
because it's not romantic
No.
and it's not love in the same way. That's why I'm
No.
asking, because it's like it's unconscious collectively also. We're like confused by it.
Right. And that's also where the conflict shows up, is because, as you mentioned it earlier, you're the outsider and then you label it and you think, oh, did you know that your mom guilt trips you? And he says,
Oh,
what? No, she doesn't. That's just mom. But remember, we all have coping strategies that helped us remain close to our parents as young kids. Closeness and connection is our main priority as a child. That connection, however, might not have been emotionally close or open. It could have been if I don't tell mom what I really want, she stays happy. And we learn that implicitly because that's connection. I think of one client, and she would come home and her caregiver would just berate her with questions. How was your day? What happened with your friends? Why don't you want to tell me these stories? She's a teenager. Teenagers don't want to talk about their days when they first come home. I think she was 13, telling me that, like, when she was 13. And that really developed this sense of caregivers are intrusive.
Oh,
And she learned to be a people pleaser.
right.
Okay, well, if I don't tell mom what she wants to hear, she gets upset with me. So I learned to tell her what she wants to hear.
Mm.
Or if I even think of my son as an example, if he came to me and I said, oh, well, then I'm going to be all by myself. If you go to the park and play with your friends, what am I going to do? He will feel discomfort inside. I know, right?
That's parentification, isn't it?
We could give it lots of different labels.
Isn't that like you take care of my emotional
Yeah, it's
needs?
codependency.
Codependency.
Yeah. Parentification would be if I went to him and started talking to him about my marriage
Oh.
issues and then saying you have to care for your sister and
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
um,
I'm not the therapist. Here.
but your reaction to it though,
Icky.
because and this is the generational difference, which is why this conversation is so important right now.
But I know I went off on our parenting styles in our generation, but one thing that we do know is not to do that. Like
Yeah.
that, my reaction was so deep and,
Mhm.
like grossed out by it because I do think we have moved past that.
Yes.
I don't know that I don't know that the last generation has, and,
And they might not. And
and they
that,
may never.
And that's the piece too, though, is that then if you go to your husband or you go to your mother-in-law, so you go to your husband and say, you have to tell your mother to stop guilt tripping us. Or you go to your mother-in-law and say, stop guilt tripping us. I'm just going to stick with that one as a common example.
Is it that common?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You hold up a mirror and you say, look, you're so passive aggressive. You're guilt tripping us. They don't have that awareness to it.
They've been doing it for so many decades. And like, how long are we going to be pissed off at our parents and our husband's parents?
Yeah.
And like, then we're still teenagers,
Yes.
We're
We're still angry.
Yeah.
Powerless.
At some point, they're going to keep guilt tripping because that's their communication style, because oopsies, back then, that wasn't a big deal. And you're going to ignore it because you're the adult now.
But that's where agency and power and choice comes into play. It's so powerful to recognize the pattern. Oh, mom's doing the guilt trip again. And then know what to say next. That's why I love there's a chart in there that helps you know what are your best communication strategies. So like with the martyr mother-in-law or even your own mother if she's a martyr, it's not helpful to take on her guilt and to change your boundaries and to change your plan. Okay, mom, I'm sorry. You're right. It's Thanksgiving. I should be here on Thursday. Okay, I know you don't want to be alone. I know that's so hard. Have you seen a therapist? I know, but we talked last time about seeing a therapist. So, okay, I'll show up. That's you taking on her guilt and losing your boundaries versus, oh, mom, you're so important to us. I know it's really hard this year. We're going to have another time together. Yes, family is so important to us too. We want to be there. It doesn't work for us to get on the airplane on Wednesday night and be there on the Thursday and then have to pack up on the airplane again on the next day. But let's find a time that's going to work better for all of us because you're important to us.
Yeah. I think that piece of being honest that our parents and our in-laws are important to us is important.
Oh, it's so important. And I think that's
I
where
love your book for that.
Oh, thank
where
you.
you're like, this isn't the Jennifer Lopez, monster in-law book. It's a funny title, and it is.
Yes.
But the truth is, these are our parents.
Yeah.
These are the people who brought our spouse into being and who raised them.
Yeah.
And clearly we love our partners. So thank you to them, they're important to us and they're likely different than we are. So it's worth delving in and doing the worksheets and getting close to our own partner. And really, it's us growing up.
Yeah.
That's what I love about the book. It's like you're giving the reader the the respect, and I was thinking about this while I was reading. I was like, you have such respect for your audience and your clients and your readers because this is high level stuff. You know, you're saying this is a real problem. It's been a real problem for a long time all over the world.
Yeah.
And this is an opportunity for you to grow because the truth is she's important.
Yeah. And it's whether it's to you, because I know some people will say, oh, but she's just been so hurtful to me. Yes.
Yes.
And she's still the mother to your partner. And she's still the grandmother to the kids. And so how do we then create a structure that works for your family? It doesn't mean, and for some people, they might go to low contact where you meet at restaurants because that's what feels best, but you're still connected in a way that works for you. And I know sometimes the really unfortunate thing about a title like this is it does throw people's backs up. And people have come into my DMs saying, you're tearing apart families.
Oh, interesting. Let's
And
unpack
viewing it very negatively. What they miss, though, from even the tagline, like the byline of the book, but what they also miss by not being open to the resource is just how much compassion I bring to this whole dynamic.
I think we have to be honest that, like, it's a funny title.
It's not Monster-in-Law.
No, it's not. And it's a funny title, and it's a brave, I think it is a brave book.
Yeah.
You know, like, even sitting down, me and you, there's a part of me that thinks, I hope no one thinks that I'm trash talking my mother-in-law because I love her and my husband loves her, and, you know, and it's a sacred relationship. That's why you wrote a whole book about it. You know?
But Daniella, it's so interesting to hear you say that because you're talking about individuating from your mother-in-law and also the love that as a result of that was able to come.
Yes.
And it is so interesting because when we don't call out the tension, like when we don't name something, we can't change it. And therefore, we get stuck in the tension and we don't address how we could actually move to love and compassion and understanding.
So much of that tension I find in general, and I experience this, you know, in every relationship, I can experience this in every relationship, is my tension in myself not being myself, which is maybe turning left and maybe turning right, whatever it is.
Right.
The tension is me. I can't change anybody else. But in relationship, that feeling of awkwardness is it's on me to own that I'm a 41-year-old woman. If I want to go to Thanksgiving, I'll go to Thanksgiving. And if I'm too tired and I need to rest and I don't want to, then I don't. That's on me.
That's the aspirations piece, though. That's the what is important to me.
Right.
And then how is that aligned with my values? But it's interesting, though, to even say, like, I hope people don't think I'm trash talking my mother-in-law, but because you're talking about individuating. And I don't hear that at all.
No, I don't. But
I know people worry about that.
Yes.
That really is a
That's
concern.
why no one wrote the book yet.
That's why, do you know how many people have come to me and have said, I got your book. I got it on Kindle. I got the audiobook because I don't want my mother-in-law to see it on the coffee table.
Right.
And my response to that is, put the book on the coffee table. And then when she sees it, you say, because family is so important to me. And this is a book that's helping us be stronger. Would you like to read it after I'm done? And it's a bringing in rather than this. And we're still doing it, though, this generational tiptoeing of I don't want to rock the boat too much.
We're doing it right now. Yeah. But I do think that you're taking something that is taboo, shockingly taboo. Who knew?
Yeah.
Who knew? Because it's the second most discussed thing in your therapy rooms. It's a reason that people get divorced.
Yes.
You are taking it from the shadows and you are bringing light to it. And that results sometimes in some weird DMs or a Kindle. And that's fine.
And that's okay. That I have so much compassion. I received a really painful email from a mother-in-law who got really stuck, and I could see the grief coming through the email because of her daughter-in-law's boundary
Okay.
after the birth of a child. And there was so much pain in the email because she, the mother-in-law, had expectations of what that newborn period would look like. And instead of then saying, okay, I'm going to go grieve this because it's not my baby and I didn't get to choose this, I'm going to go grieve this and come back and keep building the relationship with my grandchildren, my daughter-in-law and son.
Mm.
Instead, she was keeping stuck by not doing that grief work.
Right.
And then what we do, of course, is when we feel discomfort, the first thing we want to do, we want to blame. So who's the problem? My son would never do that. It's my daughter-in-law.
Oh, yeah. That's big. What is that?
Mm-hmm.
That happens all the time? Not just in
Yes.
that email?
It happens all the time. That is why this is the book that people need to have, is because it's this belief that your son would never set these boundaries, and so it must be this outsider.
Or because he never has.
He never has in the past.
Right.
He's probably
Or else you
used-
wouldn't be so shocked.
Right.
Right.
And again, the book, I love this as an idea of every newlywed gets the book.
That's
You
great.
throw it in with the glassware set.
Great.
It's going into baby shower bags because you're then preparing for this transition. And the questions around having a new baby will help everybody talk about this because grandparents are doing it for the first time.
Yeah.
And they bring in their expectations. You have your own expectations and wishes, and you're allowed to do that as well. You're also allowed to change direction somewhere in there. So if you decide to have visitors the first 3 days and then after giving birth and then realize it's too exhausting, you can change direction. But you have to know how to do that dance with everybody. And that's what couples miss because the nursery is prepared, the labor plan's prepared. But did we talk about our relationship and grandparent expectations?
How we're going to navigate that together. Because sometimes
Mhm.
people think it through on their own. And,
And-
they're
and it's-
thinking it.
Yes. And it's all held inside.
Yeah. And the plans can be at complete odds. Because we're two different people.
Of course.
And we've never had a baby before, let's just say.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's a great stocking stuffer. Says the person who's never celebrated Christmas literally ever, not once. By the way, if anyone wants to invite us to Christmas, my kids are like, we could celebrate it if we get invited somewhere. And I'm like, correct, we absolutely can. And the invitation is open. Okay, so
you have to
before
come skating on the canal in Ottawa then.
Oh my God, Ottawa sounds great. Is it great?
It's lovely. Yeah.
Canadians in general, 10 out of 10. Okay, any parting words? Anything we missed that we want to impart to our listener and maybe their partner?
When I think of the core piece in a relationship, it's around repair. We're not going to get this perfect. We want to recognize and own our mistakes and then come back together. And it is a cycle in our relationship where we go from connection, disconnection to repair. And a lot of us, when we reflect back on what was modeled to us, we only saw connection, disconnection. We never got to see, many of us, not all, but many of us never got to see our parents do the repairing piece. And so it feels very hard for us to do it. We do it with our children more, and it's just as important for partners to do it together. And so if, as a daughter-in-law, you went to your husband, as a wife, you went to your husband and said, your mom's crazy, guilt tripping all the time, just take ownership of that. Doesn't feel good. Or if your partner told you it wasn't a big deal and minimized your feelings, go back and revisit that and agree on how you're going to move forward with it.
I'm like hearing this anew in this conversation, and I definitely have given feedback to my husband that's like, oh, wow, that's hurtful. Those are really important people in his life. My parents are important to me. I feel like we don't acknowledge that enough.
Yeah.
That these are like the deepest relationships of our life, our, family of origin.
Yeah.
And it's not that our new nuclear family isn't just as important. It's just newer.
Yeah.
So it's not as firmly rooted in the ground.
Mm.
I really appreciate you reminding me of that and for writing this book. I loved reading it. I loved how the first part is an exploration and the second is more of a worksheet sort of get down and
Get in
dirty and
there.
like get in there.
Yeah.
I love everything you do, and I'm wondering how we can stay in touch with you and maybe be a part of your community moving forward.
Yes. You can reach me, drtracyd.com. I always say, come be social with me. Send me a DM on Instagram at drtracyd. I am in my DMs. I love when people come to me and say, when you said this, connection. We're just all about connection. And you know that. And I just want to pause again and say thank you so much for having this conversation with me, for inviting me into your space and your community and just being you and showing up with us.
Oh my God, it's my absolute honor. And I just want to remind you guys that the book is called You, Your Husband, and His Mother. It's a great book and a fantastic title. Your online community is Be Connected Digital. And that's a great follow-up to the book so that you can work on these skills alongside Dr. Tracy. You are a gift, and I'm just grateful for your work and for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Guys, see you next week on the Mom Curious podcast. And if you can do something kind today in honor of Ariana Rabbani Rappaporte, it would mean the world to me.